streaking away already. It's Bolt all the way. He's looking round at Gay. Watch the clock. It's goal for Bolt. And again, he's done it again.
Good morning, world-class chemists. Today, in Dr. Kim and Dr. Wu's lecture, we're going to be talking about how sodium bicarbonate, NaHCO3, helps runners run faster.
But wait, isn't sodium bicarbonate just baking soda?
Exactly. Sodium bicarbonate is a simple ionic compound. It's made up of sodium ions and bicarbonate ions. So when it dissolves in water, it splits into these ions. The sodium mainly just hangs out. The real star here is bicarbonate, HCO3-. It's a conjugate base of carbonic acid, and it's a key part of your blood's buffer system.
Okay, well, if this stuff makes you faster, I should just eat a big spoonful of it before a workout, right?
So if you throw raw baking soda straight into your stomach, you're basically starting a mini volcano in your gut. Your stomach has hydrochloric acid, HCl, a strong acid that we've learned about. When NaHCO3 hits that acid, you get a neutralization reaction. Chemically, that makes salt, water, and a ton of CO2 gas. So in real life, that can mean bloating, nausea, and sprinting to the bathroom, not sprinting down the track.
That's why serious athletes don't just take raw powder. They use coated pills, gels, or slow-release forms that help bicarb get past the stomach acid more gently, so more of it ends up reaching your bloodstream without blowing up your gut.
Now, let's talk bicarb with Miles Gaxeter, one of the best 800-meter runners in Loomis history.
My name's Miles Gaxeter. I'm a senior. I run track and field, and on the track I run the 800 and the 1500.
First, let's talk with Gak about the preparation of the bicarb.
I say. So on a typical day, that you use it, how do you take it? How much? What form? And how long before you start running?
So there's kind of a system that goes into it. So you have a bowl you fill up with 200 milliliters of water, and then you pour a carbohydrate mix it's kind of like a powder into the water, and you kind of mix it up, and it kind of makes it like the slimy texture to it. It looks really weird. It's definitely interesting when you actually have to consume it. But then after you have that slimy texture, then you have this pack of pellets, and that's the actual sodium bicarbonate. And you pour that into the little slimy mix, and you kind of mix it up, and then you use a spoon and you kind of eat the slime. But the biggest thing you want to do is you don't want to chew the pellets, because if you chew the pellets, then they won't ingest into your bloodstream, which is where you want the sodium bicarbonate.
I see.
Now, let's talk about when lactic acid occurs.
Very cool. What kind of workouts do you do that feel the most acidic or burny? You really feel that leg burn?
So, for example, one workout that we did this year that was really tough was a 6x600 workout. So we did 6x600 at 1500 meter goal pace with about 3 minutes of recovery in between. So, and you get through one, you kind of feel okay, and then you get through two, and your legs start to feel a little bit heavier, and then you get through three, and you're just kind of wondering if you can finish the workout.
When Gak says his legs are on fire at the end of a set, that feeling comes from chemistry inside his muscle cells. People say lactic acid buildup, but let's unpack what that really means. During any run, your muscles use glycolysis, breaking glucose down into pyruvate to make ATP, your energy currency. When intensity is low and oxygen is plenty, pyruvate mostly goes into the mitochondria for full aerobic respiration. But in really hard efforts, like Gak's later reps, the demand is so high that your body leans more on anaerobic glycolysis. Here, pyruvate is converted to lactate minus, and you regenerate NAD+. So glycolysis can keep running fast enough to feed the effort. In water, like the water inside your body, lactic acid is actually in this equilibrium. At the pH of your muscles and blood, almost all of it exists as lactate minus plus H+, not as neutral lactic acid. So when people say lactic acid buildup, they're not actually referring to lactic acid. What they're referring to is lactate and the buildup of hydrogen ions, H+ ions. At easy paces, your body handles lactate and H+ just fine. Production and removal stay in balance. But as intensity climbs, glycolysis runs faster, and you make lactate and H+ faster, then you can clear or buffer that. the equilibrium gets pushed toward the right, that means more H+, and that H+ drops the pH inside the muscle. The muscle, therefore, becomes more acidic. A lower pH doesn't literally melt your muscles, but what it does is it interferes with enzymes, with actin-myosin interaction, and with calcium handling. All of that makes it harder for the muscle to generate force, which is a big reason your legs feel heavy and flooded as you start to slow down.
Now let's talk about the effect of bicarb on GAC's times.
Like our last meet of the Founders League Championship, like I was on bicarb, I ran the 800 meter fresh, and I was able to PR by three whole seconds, and still feel like I was, still feel like I had a little bit more to give.
Now here's where bicarb enters the story. When H+ and lactate leave the muscle and enter the blood, they meet one of the most important buffer systems in your body, the bicarbonate buffer. This equilibrium is actually running all the time. CO2 from your tissues combines with water to make carbonic acid, H2CO3, which can then break into H+ and bicarbonate, HCO3-. It's a reversible system that helps keep blood pH around 7.4. When extra H+ shows up in the blood, bicarbonate can grab those H+ ions, forming carbonic acid, which then becomes CO2 and water. You literally breathe out some of the acid load as CO2. This is acid-base chemistry in real time. Bicarbonate is acting as a base, mopping up the H+ to resist big changes in pH. This is exactly what we mean by a buffer. Buffer capacity is just a really fancy way of asking, how much acid can the system really handle before the pH of the system drops? In normal blood, you've got a certain amount of bicarbonate concentration. That gives you decent buffer capacity. When athletes bicarb load or take bicarb, they temporarily raise blood bicarbonate levels. Now, this means that there are more HCO3- ions available to react with the H+ ions. This is the same H+ coming from the muscle, but more bicarbonate means more H+ can be neutralized before blood pH changes a lot. That's higher buffer capacity.
Now let's talk about GAC's experience on bicarb.
And finally, if you had one thing that changed the most, it could be your breathing, your legs, or your overall fatigue, what could it be?
I'd say, yeah, my overall fatigue after the races, like I mentioned earlier, not falling over, it almost surprised me, like I could run 155 in the 800 and feel like I could still stand and walk it off like that.
That is insane.
Like that to me was like, how am I not on the ground like gasping and like feeling like I can't get up and can't move my legs. So I think definitely, while it definitely touches on all those other aspects of like fatigue and my form and being able to all those parts. Oh, my form, sorry. I'd say like the fatigue at the end is definitely the biggest part.
With more bicarbonate in his blood, his body can buffer more H+ coming from these hard intervals. The bicarbonate buffer equilibrium shifts to soak up that acid and convert it into CO2 he can exhale. The result, muscle pH doesn't crash as fast, and he can hang out for a little longer and run a little harder. In this lab, I modeled this by titrating a bicarbonate solution with a strong acid. The more bicarbonate in the flask, the more acid it took before the pH suddenly dropped. That's buffer capacity in a beaker, mirroring what just happened in GAC's blood. Just like my graph, where higher HCO3- keeps the solution basic longer, higher bicarbonate in the blood lets athletes handle more H+ before pH falls and the legs start to shut down. So just to recap, bicarbonate isn't some sort of superhuman drug that lets you run for as fast as you want, as long as you want. It's really just a simple salt that splits into Na+ and bicarbonate ion, HCO3-. And a reason why these bicarbonate pellets in gels work is because when you just take raw baking soda, what happens is that it reacts with the HCl in your stomach and explodes due to all the CO2 that comes as a byproduct of it. During these hard intervals where your muscles are working really hard, it's not necessarily lactic acid that's building up. It's more so lactate with H+ ions, and these H+ ions are what really lowers the pH and contributes to the fatigue that somebody might feel. Bicarbonate in the blood acts as a buffer, reacting with H+ and turning it into CO2 and water. So this just means that more bicarbonate equals a higher buffer capacity. This is how bicarb loading can delay the pH crash and give runners like GAC a little bit more room before the burn takes over.
So next time someone says lactic acid is killing my legs, you'll know that it's actually H plus buffers and equilibria doing the dirty work, and that one of those buffers might be sitting in a tiny bicarb capsule.
Chemistry, not just in the lab, but also in your PR.